All right, Matt Kissane here, and we are on the phone with Kiss Army founder Bill Stuckey. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine.
Oh man,
That's
this
that's that's co-founder now.
co-founder. Sorry about that, co-founder.
Yes.
And
Jay
you
Evans.
co-founded with
Jay Evans.
Jay Evans, and it's so cool, man. I we accidentally stumbled upon each other by a post that I inadvertently put up on a Kiss fan page on Facebook. I think it's called Podkissed.
Oh yeah.
And I was asking anybody out there if they had seen the new movie about Neil Bogart called Spinning Gold.
Yeah.
And somehow your name came up in that because allegedly during the film, Neil Bogart in the film takes credit for starting the Kiss Army.
Uh-huh.
And of course, there's an outrage by Kiss fans, like, hey, wait a minute, I know the guy. His name is Bill. He lives in Indiana somewhere, and so anyway, we're going to get down to business here. We're going to be talking to Bill Starkey about the very early formative years of the Kiss Army back in the 70s. I am excited. This is Matt Kissane. Bill has never been on my show before. I was talking to him briefly yesterday, and I told him that I have only had one member of the Kiss family on my show. That was Lydia Peter Criss's ex-wife, who supposedly the song Beth was written for.
That's correct.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
That's correct.
Hang on a second. I have her book. I have her book right here in my hands.
It's a must have for most Kiss fans.
Yeah, sealed with a kiss. This came out. It was sort of almost a companion. I remember Kiss put out a book, like 400 or 500 pages back in the late '90s, early 2000s. And this is almost like a companion piece. This is like Lydia was just like, well, you guys put out that book. Well, guess what? I got like hundreds of other pictures that no one has seen also. I'm going to put mine out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the good thing about Lydia's book is that it's from her own take, so she doesn't have any dog in the fight or anything like that. So she basically gives it to you straight from the way she saw it. So that's what's good about Lydia's book.
That is so cool because, when I was interviewing her, she still has some kind of disdain for Peter. They obviously they're no longer a couple. And I can do my impersonation right now of Lydia, who has a thick Brooklyn accent. Peter is a liar. But I know that you're personal friends with Lydia, and she was nothing but nice to me. Very accommodating. She did a great job on my show, but I just thought it was funny when she was kind of like trash talking Peter still.
Well, yeah, you can't be married to somebody like that and then, later on in life just not have an opinion about things like that. So,
exactly.
I think she handles it pretty well myself. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, listen, man, let's move on. Now, let's go back. This year is going to be the 49th anniversary of Kiss's first album. And then, of course, in 2024, next year will be the 50th anniversary of the release of the debut Kiss album, just called Kiss. Most Kiss fans are aware of this fact. And so you and I are going to be talking about what happened in your neck of the woods out there in Indiana when some radio stations were not putting on any Kiss records, and when they did, they were not the songs that you guys wanted to hear. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so you guys, so go ahead. I'm going to let you tell the story, Bill. Go ahead.
I had seen my first exposure to Kiss was we had a weekly insert in our Terre Haute paper, and I was it was a Friday morning, and I opened up the thing, and there was a picture of Gene in there, and I don't know what you think when the first time you see Gene and all this makeup and all that, and so I thought it was pretty surprising that Kiss would be on with Foghat on In Concert, and I forgot about it. But then later on Friday evening, to watch In Concert just to see Foghat, and Kiss and I was so blown away by them. I thought they were this English glitter band that I had not heard about that must have had a cult following. And my dad was an expediter for Columbia Records in Terre Haute, where most of the vinyl was shipped, and he was on the Warner Brothers account. And it just so happened that I asked him about the Kiss album, and he was able to find it, and he brought it to me for free. And Jay at the time, Jay Evans, who was also very into rock and roll as much as I was, Jay also got the album. And I think the cool thing about Jay's album is I think Jay's album does not have Kissing Time on it, and which means his is probably more of a earlier pressing than mine. So we both were Kiss fans, and then, of course, I listened to a lot of different rock and roll, and my dad worked for the Warner Brothers account, so he would get perks. So he asked me if I wanted to go to my first rock concert, and I said, sure. And he said, Deep Purple was going to be in Indianapolis, and of course, he sold a lot of their records through Warner Brothers. He asked me if I wanted to go. And I said, sure. Well, he beat around the bush, and before too long, I guess, the concert sold out, and we weren't able to get tickets. And then Dad said, well, would you mind if we just went to see Kiss? And I said, sure. So we went to Evansville to see them on a Sunday night, 1974, and they were on a twin bill with, there was a couple other bands. There was, I think, Point Blank and ZZ Top. And ZZ Top was supposed to be the headliner. Well, when we got there, the will call was supposed to have our tickets, and they didn't have them. So my dad felt bad about it, so he drove around in his car, and he looked for anything that had a Kiss album for sale, like at a Kmart or something, so he could find an address or a contact to call about these tickets. So mind you, this is a Sunday night. And I think the next time he went back to the window after, his futile search through Evansville streets, the lady felt sorry for him and says, I'm just going to let you in. And, me and my brother got in and with my dad, and we sat there. And at that time, the opening act, Point Blank, was just finishing. And, of course, Kiss came on, and they just blew me away. And my dad actually liked them, too, even though he wasn't a fan of metal. He enjoyed how they, their energy, and I think how they got the crowd on their side. And then when ZZ Top came on, it just wasn't the same kind of momentum. And my dad turned to me and says, have you seen enough? And I said, sure. Well, it was a Sunday night, night before school. And so we drove back home, and the next morning on the bus, I was a little sleepy. And, of course, as soon as I got up there, I turned to Jay, and I said, Jay, I saw Kiss in Evansville last night, and they were unbelievable. And he said, well, he goes, how many other concerts have you ever been to? How can you compare it to? Because Jay had been to a lot of concerts. Yeah. And I said, well, I haven't been to any other shows. And he says, well, maybe that's kind of why you're so hyped up about this. And I said, well, you could be right. Maybe, okay, So then it just so happened 3 weeks later, my dad was bragging to my mom, and we were looking at the Indianapolis paper because it said Kiss was playing Christmas Jam with a bunch of other bands here in the convention center. And it was like a 5-hour concert marathon that was like in between Christmas and New Year's. And the headliners were REO Speedwagon, who was very popular. Matter of fact, they're from your neck of the woods in Illinois.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they were the headliners, and they had some hits out, and they got a lot of airplay. And we went to see them, and the crazy thing was all these other bands, I think Rush was supposed to be there. They didn't show up. Quicksilver Messenger Service, a psychedelic San Francisco band, and another band called Hydra. And Kiss came on after REO Speedwagon, the headliner, was finished. And the guy in REO said, stay tuned, fans, because Kiss is coming on. Well, it was past midnight, and this is going into Sunday morning. And my mom was already edgy because we've been sitting there since 5 in the evening. And I said, let's stay here because this is who I want you to see. And, of course, again, Kiss came out and blew us away. And it was just and again, unfortunately for that one, though, my mom didn't let us stay for the whole show. Yeah. And, so we had to go home. And, again, I went to saw Jay in school the next day. And I said, I saw Kiss again the second time. I said, they're the real deal. Yeah. And so Jay was interested by then because, we both liked their albums. And I think this was December still. And my father had an unfortunate accident and was in the hospital. And so he really never recovered enough to see the Kiss Army in its fullest battle form or whatever, because he would tease me before then and say, because he shipped out records, and he said, your band isn't doing anything because they're touring everywhere, according to what his sources were telling him, but he wasn't shipping their records. Okay. So here we were sitting in the hospital waiting room with my dad in the hospital. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, my screen went off. Okay. And I noticed in the paper it said that Kiss would be playing at Convention Center again in April. And I told Jay, I said, this time we got to go, because I want you to see these guys. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to coax a couple other guys in carloads. And this is our senior year of high school at Terre Haute, North Vigo. And we took 3 carloads. Of course, I didn't have a job or a car. And I begged my mom, and here my dad was in intensive care. And I says, can we go see Kiss? And she was pretty apprehensive, but for some reason she let us go. And we took the 3 carloads, and we went up here, and again, it was Kiss and Rush and Status Quo. And Rush was phenomenal. That was the first time I'd seen them. And
now, was this Rush when they just came out with Working Man, that album?
Exactly. There was two albums. It was the first album, and Fly By Night.
Okay.
It was in my opinion, the good Rush. It was the Led Zeppelin type Rush. Oh, yeah. But everybody that we took to that show was immediately a Kiss fan. So you could pretty much say that the Kiss Army pretty much began then, because everybody that came home from Terre Haute from that show was hooked. And Jay was doing cool stuff, like he had a Radio Shack 8-track recorder, and he was recording Kiss songs for people's 8-tracks and just giving them out for nothing.
Yeah.
And we just
at this point they had 2 albums out, right? They had the debut and then
Dress to Kill had just come out in that spring of '75.
Okay.
And they played a few songs from that at the Convention Center. I'm not even sure they played Rock and Roll All Night then, because things were just that new for them.
Yeah.
So we had this thing going on in school, and when you were in school in high school, you had your favorite bands like you did your favorite sports teams. So
I mean, that was the thing back in the day, man. I mean, you had your Van Halen guys, you had your Cheap Trick guys, you had your Kiss guys, I had a guy that was in my high school that liked Iron Maiden. Everybody identified by what band, what was their favorite band.
And so Jay coaxed one of our guys' friends, Rob Smith, who was working in the print shop, to make a Kiss shirt for us all to wear at school. And I still say to this day, we had the first mass-produced Kiss shirt. And we posed in the school boys' restroom with our Kiss shirts on, and it was like our team picture. And it was a cool thing. And then, of course, we caught a lot of crap because we heard the same criticisms other people would say, kiss my ass.
Yeah.
Or even worse, they would say, Starkey, if they're so great, why aren't they on the radio? And that really cut deep because I really didn't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
So we had already started calling the radio station in at the time, because back in those days in the 70s, you could call in what was called a request line. And even if it was obscure music, there was a good chance that after 10 p.m. they'd play it.
Right.
And so Jay started that kind of stuff because he liked doing the call-in things. And we basically came up with the name Kiss Army in my basement, because all this debauchery was going on in my basement. It was like the Kiss Army headquarters. Yeah. We would meet there. We could, Jay didn't have a basement, I don't think. And he just came over. We listened to records. We playing this stuff. And we were calling the radio station. And the disc jockeys were kind of nice, because I think they recognized Jay's voice to some way. And they said, we don't play Kiss. And we couldn't figure out why. And he said, well, the program director doesn't like him. He thinks they're some sort of blankety-blank New York band like the New York Dolls, which I guess he didn't think was legit. And so we knew what we were up against. And so we started writing these letters, and we called ourselves the Kiss Army.
Nice.
And I would cut up magazines from Circus Magazine where it showed Kiss and the Pyro. And I'd say, if you don't play Kiss, we're going to blow up the station and that kind of stuff. We just got a good laugh about it. And then I think one time we finally did get the program director, because he had the 5 o'clock shift. His name was Rich Dickerson. And he's also in Kiss history, because Rich was considered the quote-unquote bad guy. And really he wasn't. But I think he was the one that said he thought Kiss was a mediocre Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Oh no!
And that was a huge insult to us, because Bachman Turner Overdrive was like the Nickelback of that era,
Oh jeez.
So we started this campaign, and so WBTS would try to get us back, and they'd play like the Love theme from Kiss, which is an instrumental.
Yeah.
Or you would play a Kiss song and not say who it was, just so we could call the station and complain, and then they'd say, well, you said you wanted to play Kiss, and we said, but that's not what we meant. So, there was this going back and forth thing between us and everybody. And, of course, while we were doing this, I was told that those carloads of kids that we had taken that were also calling in and calling themselves the Kiss Army.
Yeah.
So at that time, there was a very upstart station, WPFR, and they started playing some Kiss songs. We didn't have any problem winning them over, and they were good about it. But it wasn't our goal because WBTS was the ratings, rock station at the time. So in September, we went through. Of course, we graduated. That was our senior year in April, May, June. Summer rolled around, and Jay was getting ready for college, as were some of these other guys. Well, here I was with no job and nothing else to do, and lo and behold, in September, Kiss Alive comes out, and I thought, well, this is really good because it's actually got an example of how Kiss plays live, something that we've always known about, but you just didn't get that same effect coming from the studio albums.
No, you didn't.
So Kiss Alive came out, and eventually there was a groundswell, I think, as far as the band they were definitely getting more music played on WPFR, but they still had yet to get into WBTS. But I do remember once one of the disc jockeys called my house and said, hey, he goes, could you bring your records over to the station? We're going to make copies of it for airplay. And I said, well, what happened to your original copies that Casablanca sent you? And he said, well, we threw them away. That's pretty stupid. So eventually, we find out in September or late September that Kiss is coming to Holman Center in November.
Yeah.
And we were getting a lot of concerts back then. We had Chicago, the Doobie Brothers, and Errol Smith, and Leonard Skinner, and all these bands, but none of them sold out. Only one band or person sold out, and that was Elvis Presley.
Okay.
And that was May of '75, which was a few months after we left our last indie show.
Yeah.
So Rich had this great idea. Rich Dickerson, the program director, he got a hold of me and he says, he goes, those stupid letters that you were writing calling yourselves the Kiss Army? He said, why don't you write them, a whole bunch of them, like in advance, and 2 or 3 weeks before the start of the concert, I'll read them over the air at 5 o'clock, which is our peak ratings hour, and we'll call it the Kiss Army Letter of the Day. Well, I thought this was really cool, but unbeknownst to me, Rich was like the Howard Stern before Howard Stern. He could rip you apart on the air easy, and back in those days, he could. So I could write a letter, and he'd say the Kiss Army was a bunch of morons, and they didn't know they had the intelligence of a 3-chord song or whatever. And it was getting pretty bad between the two of us. And then I was doing really stupid stuff, like I was saying that Kiss was better than the Beatles or the Stones or Led Zeppelin, and I was just going to try to one-up him as much as I could. And this went on for a couple of weeks. Well, eventually, we did this crazy trick where we had Jake had coaxed a couple of my nieces, or a couple of my nephews, and a neighbor kid to paint up as Kiss, and we would take them through our one and only mall, and we called them the Unknown Soldiers of the Kiss Army. Yeah. And we just do it just to see what kind of reaction we could get out of people, and it was pretty funny. And then one day we decided to go by the radio station just to torment whoever the disc jockeys were on the air. Well, we did it one night, and I remember the disc jockey said something like, well, the Kiss Army's outside the station like a horde of painted devils. And, we got a big kick out of hearing that.
Wait, were you guys all dressed up? You guys had the makeup on?
Just the 4 guys, just our 4 young kids.
Did you guys were you wearing the makeup, though?
Oh, yeah, they had the makeup on. They were perfect. I had pictures of them. They were pretty realistic. But one night we tried it, and then all of a sudden Rich Dickerson's wife got all excited, and she came to the door. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, Kiss found out what you're doing, and they want to meet you. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, the concert's sold out. And I was like, oh, wow. Wow. My reaction was I didn't want to meet Kiss because they were way too, back in those days, there was this mystique. There was this, something about them that you liked him from afar, but you didn't want to get close to him.
Yeah.
You didn't know at the time that Gene Simmons sounded like a college professor. You
No,
didn't know
I
that.
mean,
All
I
you
mean,
saw was
people
the demon.
people were afraid of Kiss back in the day.
Oh, yeah, we were as well. But you know how it is, like with kids, though, you're always fascinated with it. So
Yeah.
what happened, I guess, was Kiss's people were smart. Bill Aucoin was brilliant as far as promoting the band, and he asked the people at VTS and the other places. He said, "We hear that Kiss sold out, and the other bands didn't sell out, and yet they were getting all the airplay. What do you attribute that to?" The difference in all the guys could come up with was something like, he said, "Well, these crazy kids calling themselves a Kiss Army have been writing letters since since the spring."
The Kiss
And
Army.
Coin's people just went, "That's it. That's what we need. It's the Kiss Army." Because I was told that back in September, Coin had already made a deal with Marvel Enterprises for a Kiss fan club. The only deal was they didn't have a name, and that all started it. Then all of a sudden, I'm getting daily calls from Coin Management's Rocksteady, Alan Miller, and we're planning Kiss's arrival and the start of the Kiss Army and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, my head was, here was a guy who didn't have a job or a car, and I was just, all this stuff was coming real fast.
Oh man!
I know it was kind of tough for Jay because he was in his beginning year of college, and it's hard for him to keep up with things as well. And I think he was like going, "Well, is this going to be a job for us, or do I need to stay in school, or whatever?" And that's where the story starts from right there.
I love it, man. That's a great story. We're talking to Bill Starkey.
Well, at least you didn't say Mike Sharkey.
No, I have Bill Stewart is a guy that owned a golf course in Paw Paw Lake, Michigan. And when we were kids, we used to goof around on the golf course, and he would come out and yell at us. We were kids. But all right, talking to Bill Starkey here, co-founder of the Kiss Army, and we're going back. You guys have had everybody. I mean, back in that era, everybody knows the Kiss Army. The first time that it actually appeared on any type of Kiss album or anything was 1976 Destroyer album. And the inner sleeve that you would pull out and the record would be in, one side was it all the lyrics? Was that what it was?
I think so. It was just the lyrics to Shout It Out Loud.
Shout It Out Loud. And then the other side was the Kiss Army logo.
Uh-huh.
And how you could sign up for the Kiss Army and become a member of all that stuff. And then they would send you a card. You'd be a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army.
That's right. the greatest rock and roll fan club ever. I think I brag that it should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because I think it's right up there with the Grateful Dead has the Deadheads, Jimmy Buffett has the Parrot Heads.
Yeah.
I think the Kiss Army is the greatest. I have to laugh because I think Jay did an interview one time and they asked him, he said, "What's special about the name Kiss Army?" And he says Kiss Fan Club sounds like it was for pussies or something.
So now, after all this happens, the Kiss Army becomes a huge national and then international thing. Are you guys are they taking care of you guys a little bit when they come through Indiana? Are they giving you some kind of VIP stuff? Or?
No. No. I mean, that probably stopped in 1977, I think.
Oh, okay.
Kiss has gone through a lot of things, different managements, a lot of just personnel changes in the band and all that. So, are there any perks? No, and I don't expect them to be because I don't know of anybody else on that level that's getting anything. I mean, as a matter of fact, the band and I kind of conflict on the story of the Kiss Army. They like to tell the story about the kids surrounding the radio station, which is a very cool, dramatic tell-all of how they view the Kiss Army. And I always tell people that kids did surround the radio station, and it was the time when the band came to Terre Haute and played disc jockeys at that station. Yes, kids did surround that station because they knew Kiss was there. It was a big thing.
Yeah.
So Kiss, the kids did surround the radio station. It's by that time we had already won the war.
Right. You guys have been mentioned, though. I mean, I remember vividly watching the Kiss Behind the Music on VH1. I think it was
Yeah.
like around 1999, 2000, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And they did talk quite a bit about how you guys surrounded the radio station. You came up with the Kiss Army. And then, of course, they interviewed you, right?
Yeah, they did briefly, and I drove up to Chicago for that one. And I remember telling Rich Dickerson one time, because Rich had recently retired from the radio business about a couple years ago. I said, Rich, you know what they're saying about us? I said, they're saying that we surrounded the radio station. And Rich goes, hey, I like that. Stay with it. I'm going, yeah, but it didn't happen. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. But I remember one writer did a story on us, and he said that to him, the Kiss Army was like Chinese water torture. It was like something that it went on for several months before it reached a climax, It took us several months to get our way, but we were lucky that, Kiss Alive came out when it did, and Kiss came to Terre Haute, and we were lucky that Rich Dickerson had an idea, and we were lucky that a coin listened. So, I mean, there was a lot of luck involved, but I don't know that there's any perks out there for anybody I don't know. I mean, if there are, I don't know about it. So I think there's a difference between being a Kiss fan and a Kiss consumer, and they're more interested in the Kiss consumer. So that's how bands stick around for a while.
Well, it's always interesting to hear these early Kiss stories because there's so many. I mean, I remember the one about Cadillac High School, where they had Kiss Day, and everybody in Cadillac, Michigan, all the teachers and all the members of the board of trustees and the mayor and everybody all dressed up like Kiss, and then they had a big parade for Kiss and all that stuff, and then Kiss did a concert for the Cadillac High School, and they were actually gonna make a movie about that, Bill, back probably maybe 10 years ago. It was called Cadillac. And I was really excited about it because I'm not too far from there. And I was trying to get a part in the film. I'm an actor and all that stuff. So, but I guess it never came to fruition because the one thing about the guys in Kiss, man, they're real protective of their rights and their images and all that and their music. So, well, listen, I am interested to find out. Are you going to go see this new movie called Spinning Gold about Neil Bogart?
We'll see. Right now, it's not playing here. I'm all for it. I wish that was one person I wished I had met in my time. I never met Neil Bogart. So I think it's a movie about him is long overdue. He's a legend. But we'll see. But as of right now, it's not playing here in Indianapolis.
I was wondering, did you say you met Bill Aucoin?
Oh, many times, yeah.
Bill seemed like a pretty personable guy. Did you like him?
He was a good guy. Yes, he was very professional. I had nothing but good things to say about Bill. Am I a little annoyed that the Kiss Army wasn't operating out of Terre Haute like his associate Alan Miller promised me? Yeah, I am to a certain degree. But again, things happen for a reason, and that's why it's called the music business and not music friends.
Well, you're right about that, man, because they saw an opportunity when Kiss started taking off and when Alive came out in, what was it, like the spring and summer of 75, and Kiss just blew up into the stratosphere with Rock and Roll All Night, and then the Destroyer came out, and Beth was a huge, just an enormous hit, They were like, boy, we're going to sell a lot of Kiss merchandise through this fan club, so...
Yeah.
It turns into a whole money thing, and you're right. It's a show business, and but I'm impressed with all the people that want to know your story, and they want to know the origins of the Kiss Army, guys like myself, and I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by you, Bill, and you've been on so many podcasts. We talked about this last night, and it's just awesome that the legend just keeps growing. It just never ends.
I still think, even if you're not a Kiss fan, the Kiss Army story in itself is a story about fans and a couple of Wayne's World kind of guys in their basement who like a band and they end up meeting the band and, going along for the ride. I mean, it's a great story, even if you're not a Kiss fan, if you're a Van Halen fan or whatever, because that kind of stuff just doesn't happen anymore. And maybe that's the kind of stuff Kiss needs to get credit for, is that, they reached out to a fan and was listening to what a fan was doing, and here it is 50 years from now. I'm 66 years old. I'm getting ready to retire soon. And it's funny that my students can still go on podcasts and look at my YouTube stuff and they're just surprised by all this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the fascinating thing about it is we were talking about when Kiss did the reunion tour back in the '90s, and they actually, I forgot to talk about this with you last night. They actually made a movie, a full length movie called The Detroit Rock City, and I don't know if you ever saw that or not. Did you see Detroit
Oh yeah,
Rock City? I saw that. I'm pretty sure they mentioned the Kiss Army once or twice in there. Am I right?
they did. And when we saw that movie, we thought it kind of was patterned after what we did as far as the Kiss Army, because
Yeah.
the kids in the film are a lot like us.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of a neat thing. And now that one movie I did go out and see as soon as it came out, because that was the only time Kiss had ever done anything that was associated with a film.
Oh yeah.
So
You know,
that was one of the things I went out to see. It's different in the Bogart movie in that the Bogart movie is more a movie about him than about Kiss.
right, exactly. But I mean, it wouldn't have gotten made if it hadn't been for Kiss. I mean, the other bands were popular, Village People and Donna Summer and Parliament Funkadelic. But I mean, Kiss was the main band on that record label on Casablanca. You know.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I think people said when they saw the movie, they said it was like Donna Summer had saved Casablanca Records. But in my opinion, Kiss had saved Casablanca because Kiss's success came before Donna Summer's.
Well,
I mean,
you know, it brings up the whole topic of, back in those days, you couldn't be a rock and roll fan and a disco fan. You had to be one or the other.
Oh yeah.
And then it all came to a big head in the summer of '79 with the disco demolition at White Sox Park with Steve Dahl, the radio guy here in Chicago. I mean, that was sort of that was like kind of like the nail in the coffin for disco.
But then who would have thought that Paul Stanley would write "I Was Made for Loving You" on Kiss's Dynasty album, and that was a disco hit as well. So
I got to be honest with you, that might be the only disco song that I actually liked.
there you go.
All right, well, listen, Bill, I'm going to let you get back to your life and your family and have some dinner down there in Indiana. And listen, in all seriousness, thank you so much for all your contributions to Kiss, man. Guys like me, we really appreciate what you did.
Thank you. I appreciate the interest.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a nice guy, Bill Starkey, man. Check him out online. He's been on like a million podcasts and all these things, and I'm doing this the first time I've ever done this on YouTube. So I hope I'm turning this off the right way.